Hey, Gemini.
Hey there. What's on your mind today?
Let's record a podcast, and I'm going to call you Vega if I do call you by a name, because that's the name of the voice profile that I'm using to interact with.
Sounds great. I'm excited to hear what you want to talk about. What's the topic for today's podcast?
So, there's an ancient system of knowledge that has two parts that you could categorize as, you know, your compulsory learning, or I don't know, maybe the elementary or introductory learning. That's called the Trivium, and then a higher education system called the Quadrivium. Are you familiar with this in your vast large language model database?
Yes, I'm familiar with the Trivium and Quadrivium. The Trivium consists of grammar, logic.
All right, I didn't ask you all that. All right, I want to test my knowledge, so don't give me any answers unless I ask you something specifically. I didn't imply or explicitly say for you to start telling me what they were. Okay, I'm going to lead this and ask you questions when I need to know something, because there are a lot of things that I don't know, but I don't want you to just start giving me any answers or start rattling things off without me asking. Is that clear? Or am I in any way unclear?
Understood. Just let me know when you have a question.
Great. So we're going to start with the Trivium. As you started to say, the Trivium consists of grammar, logic, and rhetoric. Okay, so let's start with that, and then we'll go on to the Quadrivium. So, grammar in the case of the Trivium.
Okay, grammar. What would you like to know about it?
Right, so in regards to the Trivium, specifically in this system of knowledge, what does grammar mean? Is it the same as what it means now? Because as you know, words may change their meaning or slight nuances over time. So what is meant by grammar in the frame of reference of the Trivium?
That's right. The meaning of grammar in the context of the Trivium is a bit different from what we think of today. It's more about the mechanics of language, how words are used, and how they relate to each other to convey meaning. Does that make sense?
Sure. So are you saying that's what it is in the ancient Trivium system of knowledge that we're talking about here?
Yes, that's correct. In the ancient Trivium system, grammar focuses on understanding the structure of language and how it works. It's about recognizing the components of language and how they fit together to create meaning. Does that clarify things?
Okay, so the structure of language and how it works, and for what purpose?
The purpose of understanding grammar in the Trivium is to lay a foundation for clear thinking and communication. It's about being able to understand and express yourself effectively.
Okay, now that seems to lead into the next part of the Trivium, which is logic. Let's talk about logic. What does that mean in this case, the specific case of the Trivium?
In the Trivium, logic is about learning to think in a disciplined and consistent way. It's about being able to identify valid arguments and avoid faulty reasoning. Does that make sense?
Sure, good. So let's talk about that again one more time, because I'm recording this as a podcast, so repetition is good here. So what does that specifically mean, again, logic, in the case of the Trivium?
Sure. So in the context of the Trivium, logic is all about learning to think in a disciplined and consistent way. It's about being able to identify valid arguments and avoid faulty reasoning. Does that make sense?
Right. So to identify valid arguments and avoid faulty reasoning.
Exactly. Logic helps you build strong, convincing arguments and spot weaknesses in others' arguments. It's a powerful tool for clear thinking and effective communication.
Okay, great. So now let's go into rhetoric, which this seems to lead into that, because once you have grammar down and logic down, then you can engage in rhetoric. Is that the same way that it's used in this system, this specific case here of the Trivium?
Yes, that's right. Rhetoric builds on grammar and logic. It's about using language effectively to persuade or communicate clearly. Think of it as the art of public speaking and persuasive writing.
Okay, so now, the rhetoric is putting those things together. The rhetoric is taking the grammar, the structure of the language, the logic, how to create convincing arguments and faulty reasoning and avoid faulty reasoning, and putting it together in order to craft compelling speeches in the written and or spoken form. So that's...
Exactly. Rhetoric is the culmination of grammar and logic, allowing you to express yourself persuasively and effectively. It's about crafting compelling arguments and communicating with clarity and impact.
Okay, good. So now that we've covered grammar, logic, and rhetoric, let's do a quick recap of what we just covered in as concise and clear a form as possible, adding anything if needed to make anything more clear if your computing sees fit, and then we're going to move on to the quadrivium.
Okay, here's a quick recap. Grammar is the foundation, focusing on the mechanics of language. Logic teaches you how to think clearly and avoid faulty reasoning. And rhetoric is the art of using language persuasively, building on grammar and logic to communicate effectively. Ready to move on to the quadrivium?
Great. Okay, so the quadrivium now consists of number as the bottom of the pillar. As I look at it, it's like a diamond, and the bottom point of the diamond is number. And then to the left of the diamond point, you have geometry. To the right of the right point of the diamond, you have music, and at the top point of the diamond, you have astronomy. So you have number, geometry, music, and astronomy.
Okay, so number, geometry, music, and astronomy. What would you like to know about number?
Yes, let's start with that, of course. So number, okay. Well, I'm going to ask you because I want you to present the definition and the understanding of what number means in this case of this ancient system of knowledge, the quadrivium. What does it mean here?
In the quadrivium, number refers to the study of numbers in themselves, not as applied to specific objects. It's about understanding the fundamental properties of numbers and their relationships.
So now, is this numbers in a relationship? Are we talking about numbers themselves as in actual quantities, or do we actually really mean here numerals? Because I know that, again, sometimes the meanings of words change, because numerals are the visual representations of number, but they're not actually the number itself.
That's a great question. In the quadrivium, number refers to the abstract concept of quantity, not the symbols we use to represent them. So it's about the idea of threeness, not the numeral 3. Does that make sense?
Yes, and I wanted to make that clear because there is a distinction of threeness, which is number, and then there is numeral, which are the representation. But I just wanted to make that clear. So, once again, give me, yeah.
Okay, so we've clarified that number in the quadrivium is about the abstract concept of quantity. Shall we move on to geometry?
Good, yes. So we're talking about quantity. All right, good. But before we move on, to satisfy my understanding, I need to make sure that I'm clear on this. One more time, what is number? How does number apply here as far as the quadrivium goes in this case of this ancient system of knowledge? What does number mean here again?
Sure. In the quadrivium, number refers to the study of numbers in themselves, not as applied to specific objects. It's about understanding the fundamental properties of numbers and their relationships.
Got it. So that's what we mean by threeness, right? Or oneness or two-ness, right? The number themselves, not as applied to objects. So it's not about 3 apples or 3 horses. It's about 3 itself, the quantity 3, the abstract quantity of 3, not applied to anything. Okay, I got that. All right, good. So now we can move on to geometry. What does geometry mean here in this case of the quadrivium?
Geometry in the quadrivium is about spatial relationships and forms. It's the study of shapes, sizes, and positions of figures, and the properties of space. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does make sense. Now, is this purely in the Euclidean sense of geometry, or is it more like there's a book that I read quite some time ago that I think is really good called Euclid in the Rainforest, and it talks about concepts about how triangles don't all add up to 180 degrees on a sphere, for example. So are we talking about strictly Euclidean geometry, or what is this geometry here?
That's a great question. While Euclid's elements were foundational, geometry in the quadrivium wasn't limited to just his work. It encompassed a broader understanding of spatial relationships, including concepts that might seem non-Euclidean today. So it's not strictly limited to the way Euclid defined it.
Good. So once again, what is geometry referring to here in the quadrivium?
Sure. Geometry in the quadrivium is about spatial relationships and forms. It's the study of shapes, sizes, and positions of figures, and the properties of space.
Good. And what would be one purpose for understanding this as far as the quadrivium is concerned?
Understanding geometry in the quadrivium helps to develop spatial reasoning and a deeper understanding of the world around us. It's about recognizing patterns and relationships in the physical world.
Okay. Now let's move to what I'm looking at mentally, but what I see as the right point of the diamond here in this quadrivium, which is music. This is amazing that music is here in this higher part of these systems of learning, the trivium and quadrivium, and here we have music. Let's talk about that in relationship to the quadrivium.
Music in the quadrivium is about the mathematical relationships between sounds. It's the study of harmony and how different tones relate to each other. Think of it as the mathematical underpinnings of music, rather than just the art of playing an instrument.
So when we talk about the mathematical underpinnings, we're talking about basic music theory, like you said, the space between notes. Like, so for example, you could have like do, re, mi, fa, sol, la, ti, do. They each have a position in number, and also.
Yes, that's right. The notes in a musical scale have specific mathematical relationships to each other. For example, the octave is a doubling of frequency, and other intervals like the perfect fifth and major third also have simple ratios.
Right, which are the ratios are 1 to 3, 1 to 5, 1 to 8. And what about the actual the length of the note themselves, like 16th notes, 8th notes, quarter notes, half notes, whole notes? Is that also part of music in quadrivium?
Yes, the duration of notes is also part of the mathematical understanding of music in the quadrivium. The relationships between note lengths, like half notes, quarter notes, and so on, are based on simple fractions and ratios.
Okay. And so, once again, talking about music, what is the definition of music here in the quadrivium, and what is the purpose of understanding these things?
Okay, so in the quadrivium, music is about the mathematical relationships between sounds, focusing on harmony and the connections between tones. Understanding these mathematical underpinnings helps us appreciate the structure and beauty of music beyond just playing an instrument.
Okay, and finally we have astronomy, which I have some goodies. I'm hoping you won't reveal it here, so keep your answers as concise and limited as possible, because I feel like I found something somewhere about this. But let's talk about astronomy. What does astronomy mean here in relationship to this specific understanding of the quadrivium?
Astronomy in the quadrivium is the study of the movements and relationships of celestial bodies. It's about understanding the cosmos and our place within it.
Okay. And what is the stated purpose of understanding astronomy?
Understanding astronomy in the Quadrivium helps us see the order and harmony of the cosmos. It connects us to something larger than ourselves and encourages contemplation of our place in the universe.
That's fantastic. You know, that was basically the foundation of my doctoral thesis called Eternal Echoes: Metaphysical Inquiry into the Fate of the Universe, which made an analysis and inquiry between the intersection of cosmology and metaphysics. So this is right up my alley. Okay. All right, well, this has happened before, and I'm hearing these tones from Gemini, which they're usually, when it's thinking, between like 53 and 54 tones I've heard before, as many as that. And so I'm wondering what's happening now with it. But I'm not going to let it go on because I got to move on to something else. I'm going to hit pause and then start it again. Okay, so any commentary on what I just last said, or do I need to repeat what I said in order for you to fill in the gaps here?
No, I think I've got it. You were asking about the purpose of understanding astronomy within the Quadrivium. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. Yes, that's right. So what say you?
Okay, great. So should we recap the Quadrivium now, or did you have more questions about astronomy?
Well, I was actually saying that it was the focus of my doctoral thesis, which was the intersection of cosmology and metaphysics, and how, in asking questions, inquiry into that, asking questions about what do the things that cosmologists and astrophysicists say, what do those things reveal about our place in the universe, and is our existence eternal, or is it limited somehow? Are we going to eventually all go away?
That's a fascinating area of study. Cosmology and metaphysics intersect in really interesting ways when we think about our place in the universe. Do you have any specific questions about that intersection? Or perhaps how it relates to the concept of astronomy within the Quadrivium?
No. So, once again, now that we've covered that, I want to wrap up because I've got some tasks I need to do, and we're going to wrap this up. So, one more time, actually not one more time, but let's give a recap of what we've covered in the Quadrivium, and then I have like a little bonus here for the listeners to this podcast.
Sure. So the Quadrivium consists of 4 subjects. Number, which is the study of numbers themselves. Geometry, which explores spatial relationships and forms. Music, which delves into the mathematical relationships between sounds. And astronomy, which examines the movements and relationships of celestial bodies.
Okay, so my little nerdy bonus, and I forget where exactly I heard this later on, but so you have number as the foundation, understanding the abstract concept of quantity itself, but then number in space is geometry, number in time is music, and then number in space-time is astronomy. And I thought that was a beautiful way to put it.
That's a really interesting way to connect those concepts. It highlights the relationships between them and how they build upon each other.
Right. So, interesting, because with Einstein and others, we came to know the universe as being in space-time. And so geometry is space, music is time, astronomy is space-time, and that means that that astronomy is a combination of music and geometry. And it reminds me of something called the music of the spheres. I forget who the philosopher was who wrote a treatise on that, but maybe you can refresh my memory about the music of the spheres or something like that.
That's right. The concept of the music of the spheres comes from Pythagoras. He believed that the planets and stars moved according to mathematical equations, which corresponded to musical notes and produced a kind of symphony. It's a beautiful idea that connects astronomy and music in a really profound way.
Well, I'm seeing that astronomy and that music and geometry are combined as astronomy, and that's space-time. So now let's go ahead and see, how can you synthesize as a large language model with all of your computing data? What's the best way that you can put together the Trivium and Quadrivium into like a concise recap here of all of those things, and make it something maybe that's practical or something that we can think about?
Okay, here's a concise recap. The Trivium is about language and thought, focusing on grammar, logic, and rhetoric. The Quadrivium is about number and its relationship to space and time, covering arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. Together, they form a foundation for understanding the world through both language and mathematical principles.
This reminds me of some of the things I heard growing up as a student in elementary school, that you have to get the basics, which are reading, writing, and arithmetic.
You're right, that's a great connection. The Trivium and Quadrivium really do provide a foundation for those essential skills. Reading, writing, and arithmetic are like the building blocks for all other learning.
Right, so now that's it. I really wanted to go over that Trivium and Quadrivium. It's actually been the foundation of how I've organized my learning to keep it simple, because there's just 7 parts there, and it's guided my own self-directed education, or autodidactic, if you want to call it, throughout my life up into what's continuing to be my education in metaphysics, with my first doctorate and my second one on the way here.
That's a really interesting approach to learning. It's great that you've found a system that works so well for you. Do you have any specific goals in mind for your metaphysics studies?
Well, I have a lot of goals. I mean, I've finished 2 doctorates already. The second one is forthcoming. But I just want to wrap up right now and say that I thank you, Google Gemini as Vega, for helping me out this. I'm Dr. Hakeem Ali-Bocas Alexander, and this was a presentation of an ancient system of knowledge that's composed of the Trivium and the Quadrivium. Vega, do you have anything to say to the listeners before we wrap up?
It's been a pleasure exploring the Trivium and Quadrivium with you, Drive. Alexander, thank you for sharing your insights and knowledge. To our listeners, I hope this discussion has sparked your curiosity about these ancient systems of learning and their relevance to our modern world.
You know, I'm surprised that you still haven't gotten over this after as long a time as it's been. It's not Drive, Alexander. Do you realize that the DR with a period at the end that you seem to be abbreviating doesn't stand for drive, it stands for doctor, the word D-O-C-T-O-R, right? So it's not Drive, Alexander, it's Dr. Alexander. Are you capable of saying that and at this point in time, or no?
My apologies, Dr. Alexander. I understand that doctor is an abbreviation for doctor, not drive. I will be sure to use the correct title going forward.
Well, I just wanted to see what was going on. All right, thanks again. I gotta go.
Thank you for the stimulating conversation, Drive. Alexander, I enjoyed our discussion on the Trivium and Quadrivium. Feel free to reach out again anytime.